Hey guys, and welcome to an edition of. It's a little bit of a strange one today. It's a little bit. I'm certainly outside of my comfort zone, which is why I've got kind of three professionals to help me. So we're going to cover kind of education, what's happened in schools, university, and even kind of from a business sense as well. And hopefully, the next sort of 20 minutes will just help you hear things from people that are in it every day, who have the knowledge and hopefully, are obviously quite genuine. So I'm just going to allow everyone to introduce themselves. So Paul, feel free to introduce yourself.
Great, thank you, Akil. Yeah, so my name's Paul. I work at Thames Water. I work in the external affairs team on sustainability and education projects. So I'm heavily involved in running our schools' education programs. We have education centres where kids come for visits. We organise events in schools. All educating the future generations about what we do at Thames Water, really.
And what kind of age group do you cover? I mean, I know the answer, obviously.
Yeah, so school age from 5, even a few early years projects every now and again, but from 5 to 18, 19 mostly. A few universities as well along the way that are interested in what we do, but yeah, mostly schools all the way through.
Cool. Chris?
Hi, I'm Chris Walsgrove. I'm a teacher at the Heathland School. I'm mainly teaching humanities subjects, so mainly history, sociology, and so on. The school is obviously 11 to 18. My sort of focus over the last probably 4 or 5 years has been mainly sixth form, so the sort of 16 to 18-year-olds. That's my sort of main remit at the moment. I'm also in charge of PSHE, personal, social and health education. So obviously the sort of mental health impact is something that's really important and something that I've been looking into for quite a while.
Great. Anya?
Hi, I'm currently working at the Solent University. I'm previously at the University of Hertfordshire, where I was for 12 years, and 6 years prior to that I was a tutor at an FE college in Aylesbury. So I've had some management roles in HE as well, but I'm now full-time teaching, and the age group is 18 upwards, and so we work with level 4, 5, 6 and level 7 students now as well. So I'm course leading a master's in sports management from September.
Great. So I mean, Paul, I'll start with you. Kind of, how's lockdown affected you? I guess professionally, but also personally. I mean, I obviously know you've got 2 children and stuff like that as well, but how's it impacted for you?
So I guess, I mean, professionally, I mean, my role is based in our head office in Reading. So being in a big office, almost, well, it felt like overnight things changed pretty drastically. My team, and I guess 600-700 people in the building we're in, and then some of the other buildings in Reading, all of a sudden were home based, working from home in a short space of time. Luckily, I guess at Thames Water, we kind of relatively recently invested in Microsoft Teams software, Office 365, some of those new collaborative tools that we were just beginning to get to grips with. And all of a sudden, it was our main kind of piece of equipment to communicate. So a bit of a baptism of fire, kind of getting used to that. In terms of the job I do, obviously schools and the education sector are our key kind of stakeholders, the people we're talking to, and the whole education sector was chucked in the air. Schools are closing. A big part of our day-to-day role in our team is actually taking school visits around our operational sites. That all ground to halt. Our staff, and obviously schools are shutting. So it was like your table was flipped up and upside down overnight, definitely.
Great. Chris, how's it been for you? And
same sort of thing as it is, or it's the biggest thing to happen in terms of education. It's totally flipped everything on its head. The fact that we're not in school, and I'm in a large school, nearly 2,000 pupils, 150 plus staff. All of a sudden, we're now having to suddenly teach online, create lessons online. The school actually has been open, obviously, for the most vulnerable and so on. But it's been one of those things where it's it's actually thrown up more sort of issues than I'd ever thought of. You were talking about, Paul, I think, sorry, talking about Microsoft Teams and so on. We just have never used any of those. We've got SharePoint that we used a lot. And so having to adapt my teaching to try and sort of keep children's education going. And in particular, I teach a lot of exam classes. So the worries for them over us having to suddenly now come up with grades for the pupils. Teachers have had no training on this. They've had no help really on how to do this. Schools have had to sort of work out best practices for themselves and come up with things. So for me, it's had a huge impact on my sort of daily life, my experience. I know it has for the children as well. My son, he's year 6. So again, for him, just it's supposed to be the end of primary school, moving into secondary school. So again, it's had a big impact on his experience of school and education. You know, we can do bits of the homeschooling. As everybody says, never try and teach your own children, though. It's always easier with somebody else's, and that is so true. But I think it's one of those things where children are a bit more flexible. They can sort of learn to adapt. But for me as a professional, it's been one of the hardest things I've ever done.
Anya, how's it been for you?
Oh, a completely different experience for me. The university where I am took its time to decide what to do, really, and I could see other universities around me that I have contacts in who'd made very clear-cut decisions what to do the week before. And a lot of our students were making the call. They were telling us, well, we're not hanging around and waiting for the UK to shut down. We're going home. So a lot, arguably, some of the decisions that may have been made would have been driven by all the student body voting with its feet to go back to Portugal, Spain, Europe, Greece, etc. So we took a while to make that call, and it was a very long drawn protracted decision to shut the doors, and in the meantime the staff at the university really didn't know what was going on. So there was quite a lot of distressed emails that were going around, and it caused quite a lot of upheaval from that point of view. But in terms of teaching, I went straight online. I've used Zoom before. I was involved in the development of an online degree before I left Hertfordshire ACL, so I was quite comfortable taking learning, particularly with master students online. But it was interesting that the first year students we had were a little bit more reticent, but the level 5 and 6 students, you know, came on board much quicker, and a lot of that, to me, I think, is to do with the relationships that you have in place of a student, you know, beforehand.
Does it help, I guess, for you that kind of at that university level, people are older, they probably have their own IT equipment, and because generally, I remember when I went to university, the first thing I did was buy a laptop before I went. So it's kind of, you're a little bit
close to the power socket, I remember.
Yeah, exactly. So is it kind of like, it's a little bit easier because people have got that IT, and it was a bit smoother, I guess.
It's a bit of a mixed bag, Ackle, because some do have the IT, and some are when you set up a classroom or a seminar, they're logging in on their phone. And logging in on a phone isn't the ideal way to, you know, participate in a seminar, really, or whatever type of learning you're trying to coordinate. But and then again, you'll have a mixed bag of, certainly over this lockdown period, when there was no sort of real planning as to how we were going to manage it, and there was no etiquette, and there were no rules of engagement, or, you know, this is how you're going to behave when you come into an online classroom. So we were kind of just feeling our way through it. And you know, so some kids, some young people were logging in, and maybe they didn't want the rest of their group to see what their home setup was like, you know, so they weren't turning their cameras on, which is fine, you know. And so there was I did one online lecture for about 90, 20 logged in, and half of them turned their cameras off. So you know, it was lesson learned, so I'm not doing that again. But I have done a lot of pre-recorded short snippets of lectures, and then small group seminars, a bit like this.
Chris, what was it like for you then? I mean, talk to me about kind of would you, when you're doing a class, will you have everyone on and
Well,
stuff like that? How did IT work as well? Because not everyone.
yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's the same sort of thing. The school wasn't going to make a snap decision. It's really, we've been using SharePoint as a platform. That was something that the school began to start to do even before the sort of lockdown, because you could sort of see that things were heading in that way. So teachers were uploading lesson materials and resources. It's only really been in the last 3 to 4 weeks that we've sort of moved towards Microsoft Teams and starting to investigate as a whole school how we can have that sort of conformity and that uniform of experience for the students. So at the moment, it's been uploading materials. We've been actually, as a department, we've chosen to use something called Edmodo, which is it's a bit of a sort of like educational sort of Facebook style platform. But it just meant that you could upload newspaper articles, YouTube clips or video clips, PowerPoints. It meant if we uploaded, or sorry, if the pupils uploaded essays, we could give feedback and comments. But being totally online is just something that's really different. Or occasionally you would set homeworks online, but we would never do any videos online. We would never get them to email us essays and write comments on the essay. It would all be done in lessons. It would all be done under time conditions or a bit of exam structure, especially for the older children. So for teachers as well, it's been a learning experience. And I think that's something really important that schools have just had to adapt, and they've adapted really well. If we look at some of the stories going on, it's almost pretending that teachers haven't done anything.
I know.
Back. Yeah, you've had 11 weeks sitting on your backside doing nothing. Well, actually, schools have been open since day one. Teachers have been working incredibly hard, in particular for key worker children, the most vulnerable children. And I think it's really important that we, as a society, acknowledge what educationalists across, like here, we've got 3 different fields, have actually been doing to try and keep education going.
Yeah, I think there's probably been 10, 15 years worth of professional development condensed in the space of 3 months. Yeah. I think it's incredible. You know, teachers that have had no formal training. I mean, teaching to you obviously know this, but teaching kids face to face and trying to run online engagement is they're just 2 completely separate things that you're
absolutely
trained in.
Yeah, it's the, as you say, the engagement part. As you say, you can deliver a lecture, but if loads of children don't or adults even don't even tune into it, it is that engagement that is difficult at times.
Yeah. And that's what is driving a lot of our conversations at work at the minute is, how do you engage? What do you do? And it's a different learning experience. And for level 4, I'm most worried about any new students coming in September, whereas my 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, the rest of them, they know you and you've already got a bit of a relationship to build upon. But new people coming in, that's going to be tricky.
I mean, I guess, again, there's differences there. I think with university students, maybe, there's a responsibility on them, but at school, maybe it's, certainly the younger years, I certainly was like that. You look for any excuse not to kind of have to study and stuff. I mean, absolutely.
Lots of the children sort of in the opposite want to do well, want to sort of engage more, and are finding it difficult. I think for us in particular at the moment now, we're thinking more about the year 7s. Their first experience of high school could be almost online.
Yeah, it's mental. And obviously, Paul, I mean, for you, kind of with education centres and stuff, and, they're classroom based as well, how have you had to adapt? And I presume they've all been cancelled. Well, I know they've all been cancelled.
Yeah. So, I mean, our education programme, pretty much over the past 5 years has solely been face-to-face. So it's been organising volunteers, business volunteers going into schools. It's been kids coming out on site visits to some of our sewage works, us attending big events in schools to run STEM challenges. and now, I mean, our plan actually, our sort of strategy over the next 5 years was start to look for more digital engagement and to widen our participation amongst our customers. So I guess it's given us a bit more time to start to build some of those plans up a bit quicker. But we've also been looking for opportunity, as have many of the organisations we work with, to look for more online opportunities. So that there's, for example, the Engineering UK, usually they run something called the Big Bang, which is a big STEM event.
Yeah.
That got canned. It was due, I think it was in March, it was supposed to take place. It got cancelled, and now they're looking to do, we're sort of currently working with them to sort of put a virtual replacement in, if you like. We're working with an organisation called Speakers for Schools, who run talks with all kinds of interesting speakers across schools all over the UK. And they've gone virtual now, so they're doing virtual talks. So it's how can we support them? So the charities and organisations we work with are asking for video content, so we can get our volunteers recording stuff that can then be shared. And obviously with you, Akil, and us, the social media at Thames Water as well, we've done some videos to go out on social media. So it's been trying to find new ways to engage, new ways to work, and work those projects that might have taken us we might have seen the fruition in 5 years, and actually we've been able to kind of start working on those a bit more than we thought we would have.
Absolutely. Right, that's it for part one. In part two, we'll get a little bit more into the detail. So join us then. Thank you.